First of all, a quick summary of who we are as Sunexpress, the story that we've had, and obviously we want to give you an update on the financial outcome of the year 2021. It's going to be better than 2021, and 21 was already very good. We'll give some details on the new destinations and also an outlook for what we're striving to do in the following periods. 12 aircraft that we operate in a wet lease for Anadoluca, and this 47 aircraft is made up of 737-800 aircraft plus 9 new ones, 737 MAX 8 aircraft. Roughly 3,500 employees in 35 countries. And I think the unique character about this company is that we're really combining the spirit of our German and our Turkish shareholder. This was more susceptible to the regulations and the changes. The visiting friends and relatives segment, which makes roughly up 40% of our revenue. This is, visiting your grandmother, going to your brother's or sister's wedding. And these are, just in Germany alone, are 3.6 million Turks. Numbers, our seat capacity was 8 million seats offered. Our passenger load was 75%. In the summer peak, we had load factors, passenger loads of up to 85%. Those are numbers that airlines are seeing in regular years. So we've had a really, really good years. I mentioned this, our employees, this family spirit, and I've worked around the world in Australia. We've changed the compensation structure of our, open up, tell them the good news and the bad news. We promise transparency that is above what we've seen in 21. Of Turkish tourism to be and emphasize. I was here 2 years ago, I didn't know that yet. Now I've traveled the country myself, and I've really gotten to love this country, and so much to offer, and TGA has really helped us tremendously in boosting that segment, boosting tourism, and a big shout out to Yalçın Bey from TGA also for supporting Sunexpress on this endeavor. Sure. I think those were 3 questions, so I'll maybe take care of the domestic and fleet size if you want to cover the employment piece. The first one on the domestic, actually, I just need to correct one statement here. Our domestic share in the past was much lower, actually, and during the crisis, so we were at roughly 12% capacity share domestic. During the crisis, it actually went up to above 20%, so the domestic part has actually been grown over proportionally during the year. So that's the first thing I would mention on that. But we do, and very openly, we do have an issue with the low price ceilings. That is hard for us, and it's now been increased to $599 ceiling price in 22, which, given the ticket prices and inflation in general, is hard for us to make a profit on these flights. So we're in discussions to change that and to adjust that. But otherwise, again, the trifold of domestic, ethnic, and touristic has helped us, and domestic has actually grown. Full spectrum of vehicles available in the airline space. So this could be operations leases, this could be dry leases, wet leases, damp leases. There's very different vehicles. And that again drives, if we were to go down that road, and that again also depends on the fuel price, as you mentioned. If we were to go down that road, that depends and drives whether we would hire additional staff.
Uçağımızla 8 uçaklık bir büyümeyi biz opere ediyor olacağız. Bunun yanında operasyonel ve wet lease büyüme ihtimalimizi de Max özetledi. Dolayısıyla 2022 için bizim şu an açıkta olan 100'ü aşkın bir personel istihdamımız zaten yayında hemen her yerde ulaşılabiliyor. Bunun yanında kabinle alakalı sezonal bir istihdam uygulamamız mevzu bahis. Beraberinde önümüz yıllara dönük de 5 yıllık planımızdaki büyümeyi daha etkili ve daha erken, early growth diye bir strateji üzerinde çalışıyoruz. yılın ikinci yarısında yönetim kurulumuza sunuyor olacağız. Az önce Turizm Bakanlığımız, Ulaştırma Bakanlığımız ve Türkiye'nin büyüme stratejisiyle turistik sektörde biz bu büyümenin önemli bir motorlarından bir tanesiyiz. O yüzden daha erken büyümenin planları yapılmış durumda. Son olarak şunu vurgulayabilirim. Biliyorsunuz pandemide personel çıkarmama politikamızı net bir şekilde uygulamış ve hatta Abilişo projesi dediğimiz sizin bileceğiniz MPL projemiz vardı. Burada 100'ü aşkın bir öğrencimiz vardı. Bu öğrencilerimizi de biz kendi personelimiz bilip çıkarmamıştık. O personelimiz uçucu olarak şu an istihdama dönüyorlar. Dolayısıyla aslında istihdam sürecimiz devam ediyor. Ama zaten Sunexpress bünyesinde oldukları için yeni bir rekrutman, yeni bir istihdam gibi gözükmüyorlar. Bir miktar kabin ve bir miktar da plazadaki personel istihdamı dışında Max'ın bahsettiği ilave büyümeyle beraber personel istihdamları olacak.
And the Russian market is always a market that has been very attractive in terms of volume. And when we say volume, we mean passenger numbers. So there's almost no other single market with that many passengers. There's a but coming. The but is that we had a couple of issues with the market from an economic point of view. And the issues were that the yields, so the prices on these flights were very, very low. This was partly driven by the Russians themselves flying these routes with wide-body aircraft, long-haul, big aircraft that brought yields down significantly. The second part, and that would have driven our decision to expand or not expand in Russia, was the part of regulation. So it was not a free market for us. We had government regulations in Russia that basically precluded us from flying these routes in a seat-only offering in both directions, which basically, forced us to do full charters one way of the route, which is very hard. So the economics, very hard. So the economics of that market, despite the great passenger numbers, were always a little hard to accommodate. Now, maybe let me shed some light on your last two questions. First one, the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. We are a multinational joint venture. Just sitting at this table, you have three nationalities: Turkish, German, and American. Our goal, our purpose, our vision is to bring people together, to bring families together, to bring friends together, and to engage in dialogue and peace rather than a military conflict. So this is something that we feel very strongly about, and we're saddened by the events that are currently going on right now. Our exposure into Russia or out of Russia, into or out of Ukraine, on an operational point of view is minimal, as we don't operate any flights into or out of the affected areas. So on that front, we're okay. We're also doing every effort to ensure that we're compliant with the sanction lists. There's US sanction list, UK sanction list, European sanction list, and also obviously the disconnecting of SWIFT has impact on our business. All of these things we're following very closely, and we're ensuring that we're legally compliant. The fuel impact I mentioned, we're hedged 60% in the summer. That helps us to stabilize that part. And on your last point, hotels. What we've seen, and the straight answer to your question, no, I'm not worried. And the reason for that is that we see hotels typically falling into one bucket or another. I'm assuming this is driven by tour operators operating more regionally, and so there's tour operators having specialized on Russian tourists, and there's tour operators having specialized on British tourists, on German tourists, on Swiss tourists, right? And so what we've seen is that these tour operators typically book hotel contingencies that are then catered to their tour operator.
Evet, İngiltere ile alakalı Max Bey'in bahsettiği gibi 5 noktaya uçuşlarımız tarihimizde ilk defa gerçekleşecek. Bundan önce Luton'a sadece uçuyorduk, charter kapasite olarak. Buna ilaveten İngiltere, Londra'da Gatwick ve diğer Manchester, Edinburgh hatlarımız devreye giriyor ve bu yaz 2 hafta önce, 3 hafta önce başlayan uçuşlarımız 1500 uçuş bu sene icra edeceğiz. Yani geçen sene ve 2019'la mukayese kabul etmeyecek büyük oranda bir İngiltere varlığı söz konusu olacak. Bu konuda da Türkiye'nin turistik açılım projesiyle, stratejisiyle paralel hareket ediyoruz. Biliyorsunuz Thomas Cook'un oyundan çekilmesiyle beraber oluşan boşluğun doldurulmasıyla alakalı Sunexpress'te bir görev ifa ediyor. Ve en önemlisi biliyorsunuz oradan daha çok tur operatörü bağlantılı taşıyıcılar var Türkiye'ye gelen. Sunexpress bütün bu kapasitesini seat only olarak devreye sokmuş durumda ve Mart itibariyle satışlarımızda umduklarımızın üzerinde cereyan ediyor.
Operator certificate in Germany or Western Europe somewhere because I think we have enough vehicles in place that would allow us to do these kind of partnerships and tap into these markets without necessarily, launching your own legal entity, having your own staff body and so on. I think, and your question on how is that model, basically what we do well is distribution. We, again, are a very reliable partner. We don't do, games. Basically, what we put on the shelf, what you see is what you get, is sort of our slogan. And we are very fair and transparent on pricing, right? We don't undercut each other. And so that reputation, I think, has helped us quite a bit. That's our forte, that's our strength. And we're using that strength with Air Cairo. So where we now flight between Germany and Egypt, for example, we cannot operate ourselves as a carrier because we don't have the traffic rights anymore, because we don't have the German AOC anymore, the airline operator certificate, but we do have the sales power. And so we're now combining the sales power with a carrier who has a good and very, very solid safety and quality record, fully audited and brand new aircraft. So that's where, a win-win gets created.